welcome to We'll Throw the After Party, your favorite Saturday Night Live show, where we decided who was hosting literally 30 seconds before we hit go live. Welcome to the chaos, everybody. Of course, we're here, we're queer, and we're throwing the after party. I am joined today by my lovely co-hosts, including our typical host of the show, producer Liz. How's it going?
Well, tonight we're talking about 911 Lone Star, and I have a lot of thoughts that have been about 2 years in the making, and they all come down to my very first thought about the show, which is 911 Lone Star is simply Chris Traeger in the multiverse. So I'm rocking one of my favorite Chris Traeger moments, which very much relates to the past 24 hours of my life, in which I've spent way too much time in airports and not enough time sleeping.
Great. I love that for you. I have no idea who that man is.
This
but
is Chris Traeger.
while we're here, Marissa, you know who that man is. How are you doing?
I sure do know who Chris Traeger is. I know who Chris Traeger is much more than I know who Owen Strand is. But I'm good. I'm here. And
sorry, I have to interrupt. I have to interrupt very briefly because in my notes for tonight's episode, 911 Lone Star, you will notice that not once do I write the name Owen Strand, because until you just said his name, I could not remember what that man's name was.
It's literally on his shirt.
No idea. The whole show, I had no idea what that man's name was until this exact moment. So thank you for that.
I also did not put his name in my notes because I only refer to him by the acronym HONM, which stands for Hair-Obsessed Narcissistic Man.
I only refer to him as Rob Lowe because he's Rob Lowe.
Perfect.
I don't think I referred to him at all in my notes.
Even better.
I feel like we just represented the entire 911 Lone Star community in our 4 reactions to that. I thank you for the validation, team. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Marissa, how have you been?
I've been I've been good. I just ate some mac and cheese. But I've been good, and I am recycling a background from 2 weeks ago, probably, because Stephanie Shu just won an Independent Spirit Award. So we're celebrating her just in my little box tonight.
Also in my little box tonight, the top half of the screen. In fact, I would say the whole screen.
All right. On that note, Alexis, how are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like we branded this episode as a Sly takeover. I'm not going to take away from that, but I do feel like I'm on a battle of the newlyweds right now. This is a very spousal relationship divided show. But I'm good. I'm excited.
It'll be great. Of course, this is the Sly Takeover episode. We're talking about 911 Lone Star episodes 2 and 10 of the first season. But before we even get anywhere near that, we have a couple segments to get through first. Starting off with what we've been enjoying. I'm just going to kick it off this week because I'm hosting and I can do whatever I want, and I love that for me. I have been watching Warrior Nun. I watched all of season 1 and 3/4 of season 2 episode 1 before Thirsty Thursday happened, which was certainly a show this week. But yeah, that's great. Having a blast with that. I finished reading Throne of Fire, which is the second Kane Chronicles book on my journey of trying to get through the wider Riordan verse. And I've talked on the show multiple times about how all I've been listening to is Noah Khan. And just really continuing that this week, being very much in my busy head era. So just really listening to that first album a bunch. Liz, how has airports been for you this week?
I fought not one, but 2 blizzards with my bare hands this week. It's exactly as you think. you cannot fight a blizzard. It's many snowflakes, and I am but one person with two hands. I was supposed to be in Toronto at 9 a.m. on Friday, and I landed at 5:30 p.m. with an event that started at 6. So,
Just
it was a fun,
sliding in there.
it was a fun little adventure. Slightly intoxicated Liz packed her bag last night and then opened it today and found a pack of Chipotle chips, which is a treat because there's no Chipotle where I live. So very pleased about that development. What a gentle surprise. And that's a highlight. But we had a lot of fun. We went to, if you know Vic from the Voices of Atlas podcast and TikTok, Vic Organa. We went to TIFF's premiere for their International Women's Month series, and it was so much fun. And there's a vlog that was supposed to be posted, but then I fell asleep for 7 hours. So I did that instead of posting the vlog. So the vlog's going to come very soon. We had a really fun time. I'm really glad to have received the invite. And other than that, I walked through a blizzard in a stiletto heel, which I don't recommend. Thank God I had friends on either side of me, like holding me like they were arresting me to make sure I got back to my hotel. And it was great. Had a great time. And then I got to come home and watch Chris Traeger Multiverse. So I'm having the best weekend of my life. And also in news that this community will give me empathy around, I thought I would spend all of my flights reading fic, and my iPad broke before my first flights. I had nothing on my first flight, 2 hours. And then I had a layover. I spent the whole layover trying to fix my iPad, trying to get my stuff re-downloaded. I thought it worked. I got on my second flight. No bueno. And then this morning, I thought I fixed it a third time for my last flight. No bueno. So very upset that I could have spent all this time finishing the fic I've been reading for 5 months. And it did not make any progress. So thank God for maladaptive daydreaming.
Yeah, I got texts from Liz in the air. Liz never uses in-flight Wi-Fi. I knew something different had happened.
Oh yeah, I truly had. I love being in planes because no one can talk to me. It's one of my favorite pastimes. So when I'm talking to people from the air, something's gone wrong. But alas, here I am. I also have yet another case of Timothy Chalamet Worms for Brains, and it's different this time because it resulted in me having to watch Little Women to calm it down. So that's what I've been enjoying this week.
Great. That is such an adventure. And stilettos.
My anxiety has kept me up for over 50 hours. This has been my life this week.
Man, stilettos will make a return appearance later on in the show. But before we get to that, Marissa, what have you been up to?
Sort of like the yin to Liz's yang, or the left to her right, whatever. The heart to her hand. I've been reading nothing but fan fiction. Like, it's become a problem. I was thinking in the shower, as all good thoughts occur. I was like, I have no critical thoughts about any media whatsoever. And it's like, bestie, that's because you are not consuming any media.
Here is where we need Alexis to share one of the greatest TikToks she has ever sent me this week. You sent me a TikTok of a woman in a car saying, I am a non-practicing intellectual.
Oh, yes.
So good. Alexis, sorry, that feels relevant.
That's absolutely relevant to my life right now. I am a non-practicing intellectual. I have no thoughts, just tropes. It's all there is. I watched The Proposal. That's as close as I got to consuming media, and that is basically just fan fiction. So that's what I've been enjoying this week.
Big updates in the chat for me personally. Bucky taught their mom what fan fiction was yesterday, and they mentioned this a while back, and I have been waiting for this day for I don't know what the week since they mentioned it. I'm thrilled. I'm so excited. I love that for your mom. Before we jump into what Alexis has been enjoying this week, do we want to do a quick bev check? How many beverages are on your desk? What beverages are on your desk? I'm currently rocking what used to be a full glass of water that I drank half of before we even started. Very on brand. A like 3-day-old last of the bottle glass of wine. And of course, my drink for later in the show, birch beer, which is not actually beer, it's just soda. But yeah, that's what I'm currently rocking on the desk today.
I'm committed to the bit. I have the standard 3 beverages. I have the coffee that I've been drinking since I made it at 2 p.m. It's now 7 here. I have my standard grape juice in a Starbucks Pride Month tumbler. And water in, I can never remember the difference between a pint and a quart, but one of those jars with a glass straw that's very squeaky, but I will not remove. That's me.
The chaos of the multiple types of glasses you're using never cease to surprise me. Like Marissa's like, I've got cider in a pumpkin this evening, and I've got a mop bucket filled with my latest soup.
And
And
my
I've got-
favorite
I am
women
neurodivergent. Certain drinks live in certain cups.
the "you can call me dad" cup. Do we not remember the "you can call me dad" moment?
It says my favorite
My
people
favorite
call me
Favorite
cup
dad,
people call me dad. That's what it
My
was.
favorite
which
word.
belongs to my actual father.
Well, do you not have one in your place? 'Cause we
I
need to
don't
get-
know.
I'm going to ship you one immediately. Alexis, let's team up on that and find the correct one. Done.
That
Hell
was
yeah.
an ESL high five. Sorry.
No, it was great. I was right there with you. I've got technically 4. There's 2 liquids on my desk that I'm only just perceiving for the first time in possibly weeks, so I have to deal with those after the show.
God.
But I've got 2 that I'm actively drinking. The Smart Water from the airport earlier today that I just keep refilling, and then the Chaos Coordinator coffee. Even though tonight I'm not coordinating the chaos, I'm simply instigating it, which is a treat.
Yeah, the chaos is high tonight, and I'm wondering if it doesn't have to do with the fact that you're contributing.
Can we blame it on Rob Lowe?
Sure.
No.
There is nothing that I'm not going to blame on Rob Lowe. Global warming? Rob Lowe.
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted Liz to take ownership for her chaos instigation, but everything
Add
else
it to
can
my
be pinned
ramble,
on
add it to
Rob
my
Lowe.
I don't know how to segue into my beverages, but I have water in a Yeti mug because it closes. And if it doesn't, I spill it everywhere. And I have cafe con leche, but it doesn't have real milk in it. And then somebody just brought me a juice pouch because I forgot it, and they love me. So those are my beverages.
Love to
I'm
see
sorry.
it.
Can we just take a moment for this comment?
Yes.
No,
Yes,
when
we
you said
can.
Smart Water from the airport, I was like, that is a universal experience.
Yeah.
The only place you ever buy Smart Water is in transit.
So
I used to
true.
buy Smart Water all the time.
All right.
But I did
Incredible.
it because I wanted I was teaching preschool and I wanted the bottles, and they have like the goldfish on the inside.
Yes.
Like you can see the fish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got them for the
Worth it.
bottle only. Yeah.
Our store does not ever sell them, so sometimes they go on super sale and then I buy them.
Mm-hmm.
So usually I get like the really big tubs of Smart Water, and then it doesn't do anything to help, but it's fun. But Zendaya endorses them now, so
Oh, really?
oh yeah,
Wow.
she's the spokesperson. Oh, yeah.
Wow. What's the one? Haley Steinfeld is also a water spokesperson.
Is she vitamin water?
Oh, maybe, probably. That feels right.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Real thrilling breakdown on celebrity water endorsements here on We'll Throw the After Party. Where are you going to get conversation like this anywhere else? But Bunky says, Alexis, that's because you're a practicing intellectual. And on that note, what have you been enjoying this week?
This was a really rough week at school. We had a lot of like tests and midterms and stuff. I instigated a very long conversation about particular bills in my particular state. and did a lot of like reading through like state courthouse documents. But I also watched the Reputation tour for the first time. So like yeah, lots of different moods going on here.
And
oh no, like 10 out of 10, right? Like it's an experience. I know like HT Hayes' reaction to the Reputation tour has been going around, so I'm hoping to watch that coming up. But yeah.
Him crying over orange juice in the NoahCon 6th season reaction video. Very good. Just nods of agreement. We love to see it.
I'll take your word for it. I trust you.
Before we jump into our next segment, our rants of the week, I did tease to some people my sweatshirt of the night. And if you don't know the saga of this sweatshirt, I'm just going to touch on it really briefly. It's a sweatshirt that may or may not have been seen featured in one of those like person reacting to insert blank identity here merch videos on TikTok that I saw and went, wait, I kind of love that. And so I sent it to a group chat and everyone was like, get it. And I'm like, no, tell me not to. And that didn't happen. I was just encouraged. So I went to purchase this because I was like, oh, that's camp. That's fun. I like it. And it turns out it was meant to be personalized. So you got to choose like 4 or 5 words to describe you, to put on it. And so what I instead wrote was, oh, I just wanted it as pictured. And it arrived today. And I love it very dearly. So that's where I'm at today. Yes,
Did
I earlier today.
Did I tell you when I first saw it, I thought it was supposed to be like an acronym? So I was trying to figure out, like, I thought the first letters, I'm like, what? I was confused for like a solid 15 minutes. And I guess it was like purpley. So in my head, I was like, it's supposed to be an acronym for ACE, but it's not. So like, what is this an acronym for?
Flag. Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
there's no
colors
E. So then
but
I
there's
got all
no
confused.
acronym.
Yeah. I was like, what?
I will say, I wish that I had a shirt like that on the first day of every semester of school I'd ever been to, when they're like, say 3 fun things about you. Because then you could just look down and be like, this is it. These are the fun things. They are on my shirt.
So
and then you would
right,
never forget. I would need like,
oh man,
triple fire sign, dog mom.
You're a triple fire sign?
I've never.
She's never said that before.
I've started keeping track of when you say it on the show, so that at the end of the season, I can just do a reel of like every time you've pointed out that you were a triple fire sign.
Adding that to my rant.
Add that. I was just about to say that. Add that to your list of rants this week. Liz, what is your rant this week? Let us know.
Well, due to the outstanding feedback in last week's show about my inconsistency around apologizing, I thought I would just do apologies of the week, which I am stealing from Alexis, because Alexis is the creator, 100% stakeholder in the apologies of the week style content. And I just decided that for my brand and dignity, I would just do it here on the show, and that way it covers all my bases. I'm going to apologize to Alexis within the rant for stealing her content.
Love that. Love a teaser. Marissa, what are you ranting about?
I couldn't pick one thing, so I'm just gonna tell you a list of all of the things that I have thought about this week that made me a little bit pissed off, or I had something to say about. I'm just going to give you a listicle.
We love to see it. I will also be doing a listicle. We're all doing listicles. I love that for us. On brand. Mine are a list of fun facts, TM, about me, but some of them are lies. I won't tell you which ones or how many. So which ones are true? The world will never know. And I'm just going to introduce Alexis's rant for her. Sorry about that. But it is titled Alexis Makes Sly vomit violently live on air. Or what did you call it?
Quotes from fan fiction me. But it is the 911 and 911 Lone Star edition. And I will say I kind of ran out of time, so I didn't get all my quotes. So I may end early, I may end not end. I don't know. It's a toss-up.
We'll see. Incredible. All right, Liz, whenever you're ready to kick us off, go for it.
Okay, my apologies of the week. Last week, Alexis asked me to commit to doing 3 things every time I apologize. First, actually apologize, recognize I'm wrong, and then commit to an action. I think that's correct. Is that correct, Alexis? Did I miss anything in there? Okay.
It was Marissa.
It was me.
My first apology is I'm sorry that I thought Alexis was the one that taught me how to apologize. It's because Alexis teaches me how to do everything. I'll commit to rewatching the replay next time I have to make an apology.
Okay, so they announced some more casting for the Mean Girls, the musical, the movie, which is going to Paramount Plus. And Anna Gasteyer is not playing Katie's mom, even though she should be, because she has literally been on Broadway. She was actually Elphaba, and she was Katie's mom in the 2004 Mean Girls. And I don't understand why she's not available to do it again. Probably because she has a contract with Peacock. I don't know. Busy Phillips, however, is playing Regina's mom, which is like a godsend from casting. That is a beautiful choice. Thank you very much.
All right, starting off, I've driven through 8 states. I've been to 9 PAXs and worked 5 of them. I've done many a boat-related sports, but I was best at water skiing. I aced every single oral, hearing quiz in my 300-level music history class. I fainted getting my second lobe piercings. I worked in 6 different teaching positions despite insisting I never want to be a teacher.
So I'm just gonna read these off and you all can figure out what they mean to me. I don't know. We're just gonna reach it. I can be still for you, plus the next bit, which is go, I'll be still. Followed by I've got you, you're okay, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, from Safe Here With You. And then the next one, which has been a little bit of a controversy.
Okay, next I'd like to apologize to Alexis for stealing this idea from her without telling her. Shouldn't have done that. Next time I'll tell you when I want to steal your stuff. My next apology is I don't post my apologies from the notes app to my Instagram stories, and I keep saying that I will. It was more of a fun little bit than it was me committing to actually posting every apology on Instagram. Next time I'll explain it a bit and not just tell everyone there'll be apologies on Instagram stories and then let everybody down.
Oh, it's my turn. Cinderella 2015, the Disney live action Cinderella, remains untouched. It is the peak of Disney live action remakes. And you know why? Because it's lit. Because you can see what's going on. Because it doesn't look like it's happening underwater in a cave inside a closet with all of the lights have been blown out. It looks beautiful. Also, I don't care about Succession, and I can't pretend to. I watched half of the first episode, and it's ending at season 4. Oh, well, I don't care.
All right, I've watched every single Sebastian Stan project. I'm mildly allergic to walnuts. I've gone swimming with sharks. The first time I choreographed a musical was for Mary Poppins after the choreographer quit halfway through rehearsal process. I own 5 copies of Pride and Prejudice. I've galloped on trails riding bareback. Some of my brother's kids.
Was I supposed to stop you? I guess maybe. No. Okay.
No.
It's a meal, not a collar. TK from We're Going Down, Down, Down. I saw Liz just lose her mind. That was great for me. Evan Buckley is. Sometimes I miss the repression. I was normal before Frank from Your Dreary Mondays, which I highly recommend. His voice was dangerously low, like smoke trapped in glass from If I Risk It All.
It's so unfair that I have to keep going after Alexis every week because I just want you to continue. Okay, next apology. I told a lot of people I would stop posting about Don't Worry, Darling content, and then I immediately made more Don't Worry, Darling content. I don't know my own boundaries. I should work on that. apologizing in advance for Timothée Chalamet Worms for Brains Dune edition. It's already started. My commitment to action is that I told you in advance, so here it comes. Apologies for chaos instigation and how
there was a tweet that said in some ways Legally Blonde is better than Wicked. And listen, they're not wrong. Okay? Legally Blonde the musical is incredible. It gives a much more complex representation of the college experience than Wicked does, for one. It also has much more realistic interpersonal dynamics than Wicked. Moving on, I saw Lizzie McAlpine perform Ceilings before it was released on her album, and I have no video of it.
Oof, that sucks. All right, I've never been snow skiing. My first concert was Jimmy Buffett. I've never been to Six Flags, but I have been scuba diving in the Puget. I almost said Pacific Sound. That's not the name of it. It's the Puget Sound. That wine's really hitting, huh? And then my college went viral when a student replied all to a cougar advisory warning saying, "That's just my
You're
mom."
exhausting, you're exhausting, you're exhausting. So each day he does his job and he laughs and he jokes and he pretends he's the carefree goofball he's always been. And each day he packs away the bruises and his worries, takes them home to his empty loft with his quiet rooms and licks his wounds in silence. From A Leaf Falls on Loneliness. And I lost my place. Where was I? So now Buck's apartment is basically a memorial garden to all of Eddie's mistakes from Nothing But Flowers.
Okay. I'm a chaos instigator and I'm a triple fire sign, and those two things do go hand in hand. So apologizing for them separately is silly, but I can't commit to any action because that's my whole brand, and the brand's not changing anytime soon. So it's more of an acknowledgement than it is an apology. 911 apologies really quick. Sorry I didn't watch it sooner. I did not know Rob Lowe whipped his hair back and forth. Sorry I didn't buy it on Carlos till the end of 110. I shouldn't have doubted y'all. I did not watch the extra credit scene. That's on me.
That's insane. I want to follow up on the ceilings thing because Liz made a face like she was shocked when I was texting her in the middle of this concert and she didn't know who Lizzie McAlpine was at that point. Okay. I also want to talk about Chicago transplants who romanticize snow in late February. If you have not lived through 25 years of winter, you do not need to be taking pictures of the snow falling down while we're trying to do our jobs in the middle of the day. That I don't have time for that. Absolutely not.
I will say this is not on my list, but riffing off of Marissa, it is currently snowing outside my window. And those flakes are chonky. My last two are I've never made cake from a box, and I can't play a stringed instrument to save my life. I did time these out. I prepared exactly 20, and apparently I talk way faster when I'm actually on the show. So that's all I got for you. Good luck figuring out which one's which.
I had to fall over myself to tell a random stranger I wasn't your son's mother. And then you ended up in the hospital anyway. Your whole life flashed in front of your eyes when your coworker called me your wife. Buck, like something delicate and dangerous, she always lingers too long on the K. You could never be a Tyler. You could never be a burden from Let Me. And the other one is really long, so I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to get through it. But there you go.
This is the way to
I can't
pitch
get over
fan
his
fiction.
name being Tyler.
Tyler Kennedy.
Tyler
Can we-
Kennedy.
You can't give me a party gay from New York City and make his name Tyler.
Can we just jump right into 911 Lone Star?
But
That's one of my
Rob
biggest
Lowe would
problems with
totally
this show.
name his child Tyler Kennedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sly, you're the host. Can we just jump right in?
Sure, why not? All right, welcome to the topic of the show. We're talking about 911 Lone Star. First of all, why is this the project I picked? To force Liz to actually watch it because she said she would watch it for 2 years and it never happened. And I got really tired of not being able to rewatch the show because I was waiting to rewatch it along with Liz. That I said, why not just make this forced content? We love to see it. What is our history with the... Are we cool if I just read this exactly as I wrote it?
Why not?
Cool.
You wrote it.
Okay. A quote for quote, what I put in the show doc. The 2020-2021 school year, I got super invested in all the medical dramas. and I mean like all of them. I avoided Lone Star like the plague because Texas. Uh, and then I finally watched it early meant to be and unhealthily projected onto yet another broken white boy. Uh, what does this project mean to me? Literally everything. This show has my whole heart, and I love it dearly. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's mine.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. How are y'all feeling about this project? I ask hesitantly as I prepare to fade off the screen.
I'm gonna go first since forcing me to watch this is the reason why we are all here this evening. I was reading your notes along as you were sharing, Sly. I think that this is one of the most interesting shows to watch when you have more experience with the fanfic content than you do the canon. Because there's a lot of things that happen in this show that I'm like, and granted, I've only seen the sporadic bits I've seen, right? I have not seen the full arcs of any one character. And I am just more confused than where I started. But some of my starting thoughts on this show ended up being entirely correct. So I'm in a bit of a weird place with it, but I'm into it. I'm willing to keep going with it.
All right. Marissa, I know you're not going to keep going with it, but how do you feel about like what we forced you to watch for this?
Yeah. Sly really respected my choice of saying I'm never going to watch it. I don't want to. It's not my thing. And I think that remains true. But maybe I had a better time than I thought. Like this is kind of getting into my roses and thorns. It's a silly, goofy time, but then I felt things.
Mm-hmm.
And network television does not make me feel things. So I'm in a like that was 2 hours ago, and now I don't know what's real sort of place. But yeah, I will not be continuing though.
I have many thoughts related to the idea of binge watching the show versus watching it on a week by week basis, because this is a show that was designed for network television, and like I have to remind myself sometimes when I'm watching shows like this that I'm watching something that was not designed to be watched in the way I'm watching it. This is a show designed for commercial breaks, to be watched over the course of an hour, to be paced for breaks and commercials. Like, you're watching 45 minutes of content over the course of an hour. You can breathe with it. You have different ways of picking up facts and like retaining information over episodes. And I think that I have to remind myself that and I don't mean this in like a shady way, but it's just the truth. When you have a network show where the writing is not spectacular, those things become even more pronounced as you're watching. If you're watching something like Abbott Elementary, which has superb writing and is written for network television, and you're watching it not in the network television format, it kind of still has a way to stand on its own. But this show really, a lot of elements of it don't work when you're watching it on replay streaming the way, like when I've watched episodes with the commercials, granted not knowing the entire plot or context, but the
arguably they don't always work in context.
But the pacing of the plot makes a lot more sense, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're watching it back like this, like especially the 1.2, like the first episode I watched, and granted it's the second episode of the entire series, but you can really see with the way the 911 calls come in, how that's meant to be like you pick back up from commercial and you're in another scenario. I was like, why are we jumping all over the place?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? So I'm trying to like take myself, now that I've said it, I can move on from it, but like taking myself out of that line of thinking about it, this show is just camp. This is camp gay firefighter. And I can get behind that. And I get it. Like, if you're into emergency response television and you're into camp, this is what this show is. But my question is, why is this man the main character when every other character is a bazillion times more interesting than him?
That is
We've been
Thank you. Speak to it.
For 4 seasons.
So, nothing about him is compelling.
before I jump into rapid fire recapping the pilot episode of the show, do you want to share like your journey with this show in particular?
Mine?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm trying to think of what my journey was. So I did, after I watched the show, I did discover that there's a scene from 1-3 that I had actually seen several times before I watched the show. But at that time, I did not know it was 911 Lone Star. And I had thought about, well, I need to watch that show with that scene to like figure out what the rest of the scene is. There's a bit in 1-3 where Marjan loses her hijab on a like rescue, and there's like reaction to it, and that was the scene that I had seen. But really, what happened was that
I'm sorry, I just want to add a little bit of context for that scene. That scene was shot and designed to be in like episode 8, I think, and then they restructured the order, and so it happened instead in episode 3, and people were very unhappy about it. The actor was very unhappy about it. One of the producers was very unhappy about it, but that's just how it shook out. But yes.
But it was one of those things that I think, like, seeing it out of context, like I was like, well, I want to see it in context. Like, I want to see like what the rest of the thing is. And then kind of forgot about it. And then everybody knows my 911 journey. And somewhere at the end of my 911 journey, I was like, well, I have to watch Lone Star. I don't really remember why that occurred. I really don't. I don't know why I decided I also had to watch Lone Star. But I, was telling Sly today, like for me, it was really about like connecting to my friends that had watched the show. And so I had a really hard time with the pilot because Rob Lowe's in the pilot. But yeah, then I like binged my way through it. And I've watched parts of it a lot. And there are parts of it that I don't remember at all. But
incredible.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Absolutely. This is the segment for all of your what the hell is going on questions.
Good. We're going to be here a while. Let me pull my mic out. Why is it called Lone Star? Is it because
Texas is
Texas.
Elizabeth, can I please give you an American lesson for just a moment?
Is it Lone Star? Because Rob Lowe is the Lone Star?
But
I hate you.
Please
All right,
tell me
Lone
the
Star
real-
because Texas is the Lone Star state.
What does that mean?
It's like the state
It's their
slogan. It's like
tagline.
how they're branded. Like Chicago is the Windy City. New York is the Big Apple. Texas is the Lone Star state because they have one state on their state flag. They also have it written into their state constitution that they could secede at any time. Technically, they're an independent nation. Texas is a whole thing, Liz.
did I not? I
They
guess
were
I didn't make you
independent for a
watch
hot
the
minute.
Timeless episode where Goran Viznik fights in the Alamo, but I will now send you that, and that can just be your history of Texas.
Oh, my whole
Love that.
world narrative just changed. I don't know if
What
I
is
can say it.
interesting, and I have to be a little careful about the way I say this, but what is interesting is that Austin is this like non-conforming city in Texas.
Yeah.
So the city where this show takes place is like the rebel liberal city of Texas.
It's like the
Also,
Portland
huge
of
death
Texas.
population there.
Yes, and has made lots of like interesting improvements in policing education. But yes.
Austin's where South by Southwest is.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And some amazing nightlife.
Oh.
Liz is going deep down
All
a
right.
Wikipedia.
Okay, no, I
hole.
just Googled my thought to see if I had internet support before I say this out loud.
Uh-oh.
Texas
Mhm.
is the Quebec of the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
Wasn't there a Quebec mention in one of the episodes that we watched?
There was a Quebec mention in one of the
I feel like dinged
Did
on
Liz
that.
just
and
take
was like,
herself off screen?
She did. All right, we're reining it back in. If you can't tell by everything about this, Liz and Marissa did not watch the pilot episode of this TV show, and instead we're going to have me rapid fire recap every single beat of the pilot episode, so you get a little bit of context for some things like, oh, I don't know, TK sexuality or something. On that note, all right, We open
The way
pilot.
I just remembered that that's in the pilot. God damn it. Sorry, continue.
We start the pilot. There's a security officer watching a Longhorns game on his phone, puts some tinfoil in a microwave. It explodes, obviously. This is, of course, the farm and feed factory off Old Walker Road. We get to see Grace. Hi, Grace. Love of my life. And the 126 is responding. We see Judd. Hi, Judd. Judd runs a line out to a hydrant. A maintenance man called in saying the building stores fertilizer. You know what that means. Boom. RIP 126. Then we get a hard cut to 6 months later. We're in New York. Owen and TK are at the NYFD, House 252. TK is like, I'm gonna ask Alex to marry me. And Owen is less than supportive. Owen has a cough. Dun dun dun. Newsflash, it's lung cancer. Why? Because Owen was ground zero during 9/11. That'll come back later, don't you worry. 2 people show up to the firehouse. It's Beth Healy from the DOJ and Deputy Fire Chief Alden Redford. None of these names are important. The Deputy Fire Chief is from Austin, Texas. He's there to meet with Owen. We see Owen's office, and he has a piece of the South Tower on his desk. Yes, his entire personality is being a firefighter in 9/11. It's fine. They want Owen to build the house back up from scratch like he did with his firehouse. You get the point. The DOJ is involved because of an inclusivity issue that never comes up again. It's fine. Owen declines the offer. TK doesn't show up for his shift at work. Why? TK OD'd. He has to be resuscitated. He OD'd because Alex is in love with someone else, his spin instructor named Mitchell. So Owen's like, you're going to therapy and we're moving to Austin, baby. Then we're driving
gone way too fast from the spin instructor piece of all of this.
Oh no, that is that part I 100% buy. The rest of it is a little fanciful, but a New York party gay being secretly in love with his spin instructor is 100% real.
All right. We arrive in Texas at the 126. The building is left exactly as it was when they left for the call that nobody returned from except for Judd. And TK is all like, tell him you changed your mind. We don't belong here. And I was like, we were invited here. And then TK is all like, not by anybody grieving these men. They're not ready to get rid of the dead flowers on the sidewalk. And now what? Some city slicker's gonna come in here and scold them on how they're doing life all wrong. And then Owen is like, sometimes it takes an outsider, someone they can blame and possibly hate. We sure do, my dude. And then Owen completely renovates the entire station. There's sledgehammers, walls are getting taken out, lots of windows, very open airy, wholly revitalizing the station.
There's a fire truck going by right now. Owen Strand is with us, everybody. Continue.
All right, then we get to see Mateo, who's a frequent flyer in the academy. He's driving the fire chief, because he washed out of the academy, blah, 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 blah. Owen's all like, we need exceptional people. And then we get an interview montage, and we meet Marjan Marwani, who's from Miami. She only came to the interview because she wanted to go to South by Southwest. She has 11 reprimands on her record because she's allergic to poor leadership, and she's a Muslim hijabi woman. We love to see it.
Wait. Sorry. Allergic to poor leadership. Her words?
Yep.
The
Direct
official
quote.
words on the report?
Her direct quote to Owen Strand about why she has 11.
That's me.
We stand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, next up we have Mateo Chavez, who set multiple records in the academy, but he can't pass the written exams, so he flunked out 4 times. He's hella dyslexic. We love to see it. Best dyslexia rep I've ever seen. Anyways, next up we have Paul Strickland, who's from Chicago. He has a gift for threat assessment, and he is a Black trans man. And then rounding out the team, we got Judd Ryder. He's the lone survivor of the OG 126 crew. He worked for the 126 straight out of high school. And he has this great quote during his like interview meeting, whatever. And he's like, "You got a whole we are the world thing going, but no place for a guy like me who can actually do this job. This is my house." And then Owen goes, "It was." And then Judd's like, "You can take your sorry and stick it up your ass." And you're like, "Oh, this dude is Texas." But wait, just wait for it. The Strands go house hunting, and Owen's like, "My only priority is that you live," to TK. Then we meet Michelle, love of our lives. She's harassing Dustin. Why? Because it's Iris's 28th birthday, and she helps a kid with asthma. That'll be a callback later. And then we see her getting arrested by Carlos. Yes, Alexis?
No, it can happen later. Never
Okay.
mind. I just need
All
Liz
right.
to eventually know who Iris is, but we can handle that later.
We'll get to it in 110. And then Michelle's like, "Can you drop me off at work? I have a shift in 20 minutes." And Carlos says, "I'm not an Uber." And Michelle goes, "I wasn't going to tip." We enter our first call of the show. It's a Carolina Reaper Pepper in taco bait and switch. And Owen shows up doing his whole captain thing. And then Michelle bursts onto scene going, "Michelle Blake, paramedic captain. And this scene is medical, so I run this call." And Owen's like, "What the fuck? What are you telling me what to do?" And she goes, "You didn't read the Travis County manual, did you?" Icon. We get to see Judd and Grace. Love of my lives, my favorite parents. Judd is all like, "I'm fine," and Grace is all like, "Bullshit, but okay." And he's all like, "Owen's got it out for me. He don't give a damn that I got 20 years out on that rig." And she's like, "I hope you're not trying to tell a Black woman how tough life in Texas is." Pause for applause for Grace. We love her. And then they have this great scene, and she says, "The man I love has never taken no for an answer, so do not start now." Then we get the introduction of Owen Strand's obsessive compulsive skin and hair routines. He has this great quote that is so close to being iconic, where he's like, "I have 3 commitments to my people. Everyone who clocks in will also clock out. Everyone gets a fair shake, and no one gets left behind." And he has to ruin it with an ellipses when it comes to skin hair. And then I wrote, "The inhuman screech I screeched when I realized this was the baby in the tree call." So Carlos is at the scene of a car accident. The media shows up. The victim is pregnant. She's like, "My baby, not this baby, the other baby." Paul does his thing and finds the baby in the tree. Carlos saddles up to TK and goes, "He's an impressive guy." And TK's like, "He's my dad." Sobs. That will be a callback later. The Dream Team hashtag goes viral. They go to the bar for some post-shift drinks. TK is like, "I like my AA meeting." And then he goes, "I think we'll be just okay." Sobs. Grace and Judd show up to the same exact bar. It'll be fun. Michelle and Owen land dance together. It's a moment. And then Tarlos dance together. Sobs. Common theme, if you can't tell. And then Owen starts to cough because, the lung cancer. And goes outside. Sorry, I smacked my mic. And Grace follows him and is like, "I'm asking you to do what you do best. I'm asking you to save him." About Judd. And Owen's like, "Okay, have him come to the station tomorrow." Blah, 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 blah. Judd shows up to the station. He sees the flowers and memorial in the dumpster or whatever. He gets really pissed about it. Owen tells him about his cancer, which is the first time he ever actually acknowledges the fact that he has it. Judd apologizes. And then he walks out, and then he sees the memorial wall that Owen had designed, and he loses his shit full on just in the app bay. And then Owen has this big long quote. And keep in mind, this is happening with Judd, losing his shit, sobbing on the floor. next to the truck. It's the first thing I did when I redid the station in Manhattan, put up one of those so we could see their faces every time we went out on a call to ensure that we honored their memory, their sacrifice, your men, your brothers. They'll never be forgotten. The only time I will ever give props to Owen Strand. And then Colleen and Mabel show up. They're Chuck Parkland's family, one of the firefighters from the 126. They come by the station with cookies because they're like, Chuck says, whoever's 126 is like blood, blah, blah, blah. It's very cute. And then, of course, we close with the banger needle drop. Little Nas X's Old Town Road as we get a montage playing. Owen's putting the little 9/11 souvenir on his desk. Marjan is praying. TK's working out. Mateo's cleaning the inside of the handle truck callback from earlier. Paul's doing the new skin care routine that Owen taught him. And then the bells go off. They all rush to the truck, and you see Judd hopping up into the back of the ladder as they ride off into the sunset. And that is season 1, episode 1 pilot. Liz, how much of that question answers your questions?
Now is just a great time to just remind everyone and myself that this is still executive produced by Ryan Murphy and Brett Falchuk, who made Glee.
It is 100%.
Because there's little nuggets sprinkled in there where you're like, yeah, that's Glee.
That explains the music choices at the very minimum to me.
Honestly, it explains this entire last season. Like the most recent season, I don't know how you explain that except by Ryan Murphy's involvement.
It also explains the community to me. If I'd put it together that the gay firefighter community is just former Gleeks, I understand everything now. I know everything I need to know.
I've never seen Glee. I've never seen an episode of Glee.
Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it off air.
I've seen some Glee, but I was not a fan. I did not watch all of it. That's all I'll say.
I don't know where to start with that.
That's fair. We could start with the one question that I did not answer in that whole recap is, who is Buttercup? Where did the dog come from? Marissa very much wanted to know about this dog, and I'll tell you where this dog came from. Owen Strand getting this very experimental type of cancer treatment for his lung cancer that's from 9/11. Did you know it was from 9/11? Anyways, and at some point this season, they're like, well, we did the initial round of testing on dogs with the same type of cancer. And they stay in the kennels at the lab or whatever. And Buttercup has the same exact kind of lung cancer as Owen, so he takes him home. And it's this big whole thing. TK's very mad about it. And yes, it's a moment. But it's Buttercup. We love Buttercup. Alexis, do you have anything to add about Buttercup?
Ask where Buttercup is in the most recent season.
Where's Buttercup in the most recent season?
Nobody knows! We assume that Buttercup is chilling out there somewhere, but Buttercup has just disappeared from the plot line, and we're all just supposed to be cool with it, and some of us are not cool with it.
I will say, I found...
It's one of network TV's best tropes. Erase a character and never mention it again.
I found an old Reddit thread that had a paraphrase of a live that Ronan did. Apparently, the dog actor that plays Buttercup got very famous and is now very hard to book, which is why Buttercup hasn't been in many of the recent seasons. But that's just never mentioned.
So you could say the Lone Star is Buttercup.
Reaching.
I wish.
We're really reaching.
I'm more stressed listening to these plot lines than I was trying to get on my connector flight to Toronto.
Honestly, JJ, Buttercup had a better storyline than Lucy, and I stand by that. But yeah.
Mhm. The fucking sloth. Anyways, that's not the point of this. Let's hop into some roses and thorns because I've been talking for like an hour straight.
I'm
You
trying to
have
pull
to
up.
keep talking.
I'm trying to pull up my notes
All
as
right.
I'm watching the episode so I can reflect on some of my more astute thoughts while we talk about roses and thorns.
Okay.
Marissa, do you want to? I know. Usually I would kick off this one. How about somebody else? It's not me. Kicks her off.
Marissa, go for it.
Great. I touched on this previously in my like initial thoughts, but I guess my rose is that I cried. 110 made me cry. That's more to do with the fact that it's Winter Soldier Week. If you know, you know, rather than the actual show. But I was not prepared for that. I was very angry with Sly for a moment because they made me cry.
That's fair.
But in trying to think of what my rose was, I guess it was just like it made me feel something rather than feel nothing or feel anger. So like it was actually to do with the plot rather than like my reaction to receiving the plot. I don't know. So that felt like a more positive to me. And then my thorn is that I was under the impression that this was the one with Oscar nominee Angela Bassett, and it's not.
She does make a brief cameo in what, like 3, 5?
Something like that,
somewhere
yeah.
in there. But yeah, no, this is not OG. Starring
I don't
the
know the
incomparable
difference.
Angela Bassett.
So I was really upset about that.
That's so
That
funny.
is distressing when you think you're about to watch an hour and a half of Angela Bassett content, and in fact, it's just an hour and a half of Rob Lowe content. Like that's a big thorn.
It's a big bait and switch. But I will say, I don't think that Marissa would love Angela Bassett on OG because her role
True.
on IG is, or on OG is to be like propaganda, which is
Yeah.
why Marissa won't watch the show to begin with.
Probably not.
I
No,
mean, Angela
but
Bassett is great, but like her character, that is the
But I
focus
was
of
like,
it.
It's
I
very
really don't want to watch the
complicated,
show,
yeah.
but it's Oscar nominee Angela Bassett. It's not. It's just Rob Lowe. It's fine.
Alexis, can you do your
I'm
roses and
trying
thorns?
to find it. So apparently, we wrote a lot of fucking notes, and I keep getting lost. Okay, my rose was Sex and Stardust. Because I had a really complicated rose, and instead Sex and Stardust was just easier. And I followed that with a bit from the extra credit scene, which I guess I can talk about because you all have seen it. Which was how, like, there are times in this show where their word choice is really particular in like a positive way. Like it's nuclearly good. And one of those was the choice of, I don't know if I can say it, but the choice of using another word instead of reckless in the precinct scene, because I think reckless is the word they would have used on like a lot of other shows, and that's not the word that is used, which is really interesting. And my thorn was first I put, am I allowed to say Rob Lowe? And nobody said I wasn't. So Rob Lowe would be my thorn.
I'll follow up with that. My thorn was the acronym HONM, which stands for Hair Obsessed Narcissistic Man, aka Owen Strand. So yes, you can't say Rob Lowe.
And I followed it up with the yellow hoodie, which some of us disagree with, but I have a lot of trauma around the yellow hoodie.
That's fair.
Well, my thorn technically is also Rob Lowe because my thorn is not enough characters on this show are in therapy, and especially the men, which is just Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe goes to therapy.
He does go to Rob Lowe does go to therapy. It's not done well.
It's an arc about his fear of clowns. that when I
right.
watched it, I thought was a literal, like a legitimate joke. Like I was like, this is
Let
going to be
us-
a dream sequence. And it's
Let
not.
us not forget that I watched
You
a
watched that
random episode in which there was a whole segment of him walking toward a clown mural with no explanation.
Therapy. That's the
I
therapy
have
episode
JJ
for Rob
explain-
Lowe.
I was like, JJ, explain the art direction behind this. I mean, it's drama. He's scared of clowns. I thought, oh, that makes make a lot more sense to me. I thought it was some big, a big analogy for them. No, he's literally just scared of clowns, and that's how deep it is.
Yeah, we don't get much more on that either, I don't think. If we do, I've forgotten.
Yeah, I would like more therapy, so I will commit to seeing that through as I watch some of this show. My rose is Cowboy Like Me, Judd's version. And if there are not edits to Judd doing like his horseback riding and his cowboy hat to Cowboy Like Me by Taylor Swift in my DMs by tomorrow morning, Eastern time.
This on my desk by Monday.
I want this on my desk by 9 a.m. on Monday. There will be a briefing next show of what I have discovered. I think Taylor Swift wrote that song for Judd. I think Taylor Swift is a fan of the Gay Firefighter show.
JJ has it locked and loaded just for you. Incredible.
So I really like Judd. I think that Judd should be this. I think Judd is the star. Is Judd the main character? He is to me. Him and Grace. I love Grace. I think Grace is actually
My
the best
favorite
character on the
parents.
show. And her and Judd
really
being
is.
together is like so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I already said my thorn, which is yeah. And then I didn't actually write down a rose, but I did text Alexis that I was trying to find a rose that wasn't some iteration of something like was able to tether my perception to reality while manic or something. Because this show really did a lot for me, and I just really appreciated what it did for me at that time in my life. So it means a lot, and it's a silly goofy time. So yeah, I guess that's my rose.
No, I have another thorn, which is if you go on the show account, you will see I turn on 1.2 and paused it all of half of a second in because no one ever told me that the first shot of the second episode of the entire series is just Rob Lowe driving to work, blasting on full volume. I whip my hair back and forth. And then
in the year 2020.
The other thing,
This song is like 6 years old.
the thing I wanted,
2010.
Oh dear
You keep it on
God.
Jesus.
A decade of Rob Lowe driving to work, blasting. I whip my hair back and forth. Sorry, Alexis, please.
God.
no, Liz, you said earlier that like you were having trouble fighting a blizzard, and there is another iconic Rob Lowe driving in the car to music moment in this series of episodes where he fights a blizzard and also
He
like
does fight a blizzard with his bare hands.
that is hurting.
Tell.
Thank you, cartel. That's the word
I
I
saw
think.
that
want-
episode. I saw that episode, and Grace is trying to get to the hospital.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
saw that
I remember the first episode of Lone Star you ever watch. It was either 3-2 or 3-3, but you started halfway through.
Yeah.
I think it was 3-2. You started halfway through the second episode of an entire arc opening the season in the third season of the show.
I
Is
did.
that the one where
What's the one
Charlie
before
Swan
this?
tries to deliver the baby and
Yes.
has to like drink gasoline? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I think that specific scene was the first scene of Lone Star I ever watched.
Wow.
Christ.
Yeah.
Also, I want to address this. Yes, 911 Lone Star began in January of 2020. It is a true time capsule of something in the last 4 years.
I have a theory. I think Ryan Murphy was writing all of the horrible things that they did with the Jeffrey Dahmer thing and was like, you know what I need on the side? a side story, gay firefighters. So let's do like this really serious thing for Netflix and then create a Rob Lowe firefighter fantasy show as my fun little side quest.
It's
I
funny
love
to
that you
me-
think that Ryan Murphy read any of the words that were ever written for this show. I think he has a checklist that's like gay, trans, weird Willow Smith song, and then just like sends it to the writer's room and they do it. I don't think he touches anything else.
Oh no, it doesn't matter. I think it's fascinating that people kind of attribute all of this stuff to the writers, because I'm sure that is important. But in my head, it's a lot of Rob Lowe being like, you know what would be funny if I drove up to the fire station to like whip my hair back and forth. And he just like, but you know what would be funny? Like, you know, the way he like held up West Wing production for like a year, just that. And so like whip my hair back and forth.
Is Rob Lowe fulfilling all of his fantasies. That is the premise of Lone Star as a show.
Is he an executive producer?
I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
Surely.
He has to be.
Because
At least
Angela
by
Bassett's
season
the next
3.
executive producer on
So
OG.
is, Peter Krause now.
I must know.
Peter Krause.
All right, moving on. Let's get to some standout quotes. I have a million, so I'll go first.
Oh shit! I didn't put any. Sorry.
You did not put any. My honorable mention goes to the callback that we've seen like 3 times at this point, where one person says he's an impressive guy, and then the other person responds, he's my, and then insert relationship here. It gets me every time. It does, just right in the heart. The others are from 1-2. The quote I quote like at least once a week. Sure, ma'am, but just so you know, I am a homosexual. Iconic line delivery from Ronan Rudenstein there. Just so delicious. Yeah, buddy?
I'm losing it over the fact that Liz thought that was how we discovered that he was gay. I will never get over the fact that Liz thought we discovered TK was gay by the line, sure, ma'am, but I'm
a homosexual.
And you know what?
I'm not
you know what?
the proposal we saw in the episode before.
Honestly, I think that's the only way my brain needs to know that's how he came out on the show.
Fair.
He didn't come out on the show. He was gay the whole time.
to the viewers.
coming out to
Sure,
everyone
ma'am,
you work with,
but I'm a
like
homosexual.
random group of people. Jesus Christ.
Tell me that's something Ryan Murphy wouldn't script. Tell me that's something Ryan Murphy wouldn't script.
I don't
No,
know.
you're absolutely right. It would have
I
been
can't tell
season
you
2
what
of Glee.
Sure, ma'am.
All right. My next standout quote is from the extra credit that nobody watched, and so I forced them to watch literally 5 minutes before we went. When I say everybody, I'm just referring to the married couple up top.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're not people
required if you
positive.
wanted us to do it. We're here to do. We are
Anyways,
non-practicing intellectuals. We are here to do the bare minimum.
all right. Well, I forced you to watch it anyways. Anyways, the extra credits was the arrest scene from 1-3, because I thought you needed it to understand anything that happened with their relationship in 1-10. Of course, the iconic line, bummer about getting arrested, which, fun fact, when I've typed so many times that my Google autocomplete, if I type 911 Lone Star and hit enter, it will autofill the beginning of that quote, bummer about getting arrested. So just love that. And then my final standout quote is from 1-10, and it's the Camaro scene, and just that whole scene. But it's the what are you thinking? I'm thinking we make a pretty good team. Hand grab. We really do, don't we? And just Ronan's afraid so at the end. Ah!
And then
Kills me every time.
timed so perfectly with the song. It's
Mm-hmm.
too much,
Mhm.
truly.
That scene legitimately wrecks me. I
I
did.
do want to share quickly. I did a little
Mhm.
googly Google. Rob Lowe is an executive producer of the show, but do you know who else is?
Angela Bassett?
Angela Bassett.
We said that already.
Oh, I missed that.
My I had a breakdown
obviously
about
didn't
not
pay
knowing how you
attention.
say Peter Krause.
My anxiety has kept me up for over 50 hours. I'm retaining 3% of what's happening tonight, and I will rewatch this tomorrow.
Incredible. But yeah, I did yell at a friend of the show, Danielle, for unprompted sending a still of that scene from 110
That's
to
true.
the group chat with no warning. And I did lose it when I got that as a text on my phone. I almost threw my phone. So that scene obviously means a lot to me. Liz, what were some of your standout quotes from this episode?
Well, I have to start with not a quote, but a moment. And it's when Rob Lowe jumps out of the plane that then bursts into flames. And it's like the quickest CGI you've ever seen in your life. And I really want someone to take that scene and just animate Rob Lowe going wee over it while the plane explodes. Because that's what it looks and sounds like for the whole 2 seconds it's on screen. So that was a standout to me. I rewatched that a few times. And I really wanted that to be my background this evening, but I could not find an image of it. Second, one of the 911 calls is okay. All of the voice actors that did the 911 calls, like, I don't know if they get better in future seasons, but they really leave a lot to be desired on episodes that we watched this evening. They were not convincing to me at all for the stakes that some of them were up against. So when this man says, "My apartment stinks like rotten eggs," I think it's gas. I was like, bestie. That's not how you would say that. Like, I get you're trying to get your hours in, get your union card, but like you got to put a little something into it. Like, it was, yeah, that really I had a giggle. And then the other was Rob Lowe saying, "Hemingway fan? Me too." And then it just drops completely. Because in any normal course of conversation, if Alexis and I were to have a conversation and Alexis were to say, "Hemingway fan? Me too," I would then give that a moment and be like, "Oh, like we might discuss Hemingway for a brief moment and then, go back to our conversation." I feel like that's the way that these things normally go when you discover you have a common interest with someone. But instead he goes, "Hemingway fan, me too." And just that is all. He does not offer anything.
He's not. We stand by the fact that he is not a Hemingway fan. That man has never read Hemingway in his life. And he's the kind of person to memorize like every author's like most famous quote just so he can regurgitate them at any given moment to make him seem smarter than he is. That man has never touched Hemingway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was funny. I was like, especially in network television, right? Like I feel like when you're writing for
Bucky's so confused. I'm so sorry.
Rob Lowe plays Owen Strand, who is the father of TK Strand, who is a canonically gay man on the show.
I will say I was watching this show with somebody who hadn't seen it like this week, like yesterday, and their question was like, "Is Rob Lowe straight or is Rob Lowe straight? Like, is he just neutrally straight or is he straight problematic?" But like at no time was it like Rob Lowe could be anything else. Like,
yes, he is someone's dad.
Yeah.
More than someone. Well, no, I guess not. Just one someone and a dog.
The last quote that really stood out to me was when she says, "But that junkie stole your van." And then they cut to commercial, and then they return from commercial and they're in the hospital. But when you're watching the junkie stole your van, and the stakes are just immediately gone and everything is fine within the next 2 seconds of watching. I love network TV. I love just the snake explode into the air like the snake. Oh, the snake. I'll never recover from the snake appearing and then just being a source of anxiety for up to 50 hours.
All right. on that note, Alexis, what were your standout quotes?
Okay, well, my standout quotes were like genuinely all of your quotes. Like, I'm a big fan of the homosexual ma'am quote. I'm a big fan of all of the like, he's my dad, like all of those callback things. I am also a huge fan of the delivery of I can flip on the light bar and siren, which I have said on this
Classically.
that went
And
straight
Liz
over
was
Liz's
very
head.
confused.
Yeah. The light bar and siren. I love the exchange of like, I don't do this a lot, clearly. Like, I just think is so like,
Ouch.
yeah, I could watch just that and know who they are as people, which I love. And I just feel my heart tug every time. And I don't think this was I think this was when I went over the extra credit. Oopsies, but is the it connects me to something bigger, like not just my faith, but those who come before me, my mom and my aunties. Like, that whole quote I really enjoy.
Hell yeah. Some great moments. Marissa, do you have anything? Or are you just vibing?
Out of respect, I have no standout quotes because the only quotes that stood out to me were deeply bad.
Okay.
I at a certain point decided to not write down all of my negative thoughts.
I did not take that approach. Every single thought that came into my skull went onto this sheet. It's the most notes I've ever written for anything.
I know.
Show.
I scrolled through. There's a lot of them. But no, I gave a precursor at the start of my notes that I could tell that they were not going to be nice, and I couldn't apologize for that. But I did just start centering myself at a certain point because it was just getting repetitive. I did not enjoy most of the dialogue, and so the only things that stood out negatively, except for "Sure, ma'am, but I'm a homosexual." That is iconic. Like,
Just
put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah, the homosexual. We'll get to that scene because I have so many thoughts.
Can we move into my first conversation theme? Because as we're talking, I'm just having more questions. I'm looking at my notes, and just a lot of pieces are coming together for me, and also not.
Okay.
Great.
Go for it.
Well, I think that there's like a bit of a cultural gap here for me as a Canadian, and maybe it's not that at all, but my first question was, are we supposed to know this is Texas? And if so, provide examples. And now that I know what Lone Star means, I do understand that we are immediately supposed to recognize that this is happening in Texas.
I understand you were deeply sleep deprived and been traveling for the past 24 hours, but they mention that they are in Texas like every 3 lines.
This is the most Texas season of this show.
But like, what does that mean? Like,
nothing. It's network television.
But what is Texas about this? Like, it's 911 Lone Star. Like, to me, that could have been any American city. Like, what is it about this that screams we are solving?
What about Chicago PD says that it's Chicago PD?
There's
a great question. A great question that I would ask.
And Lone Star has apparently good brisket and the casual wearing of cowboy boots. And really, did we
barbacoa? Going to see a calendera? Like,
these are things that I am happy to have clarification on. So thank you for providing me with that.
Tex-Mex. Yeah,
I will also say, in my like one experience to Texas, the whole line bar dancing scene, like, big thing, which comes up in Lone Star like more than once.
Was that in the episodes we watched?
Was it?
Oh no, it was in one.
I was like, how tired am I that I missed the whole line dancing sequence? Like that would have my whole thing.
I did have 5 notes related to the line dancing scene in my recap of 1-1. So we're just really showing how much Liz does not pay attention when I speak on this episode.
It is not you, bestie. It's this.
One of my favorite like exchanges in this show of all time is in a later episode where they go to a not line dancing club, but they go dancing.
And they go to the gay club?
Yes. I love the bit about the like that you're straight. I don't judge. Like, iconic.
So the context for that is TK invites Paul out to go with him and Carlos to the skate club. After Paul has this whole conversation about like what it means to come out as trans and how like for every one person you tell, you have to assume there's like 3 people who know, blah 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 blah. And so it was this whole big moment in the episode, and then Carlos pulls up and Paul is like, did he tell you? And Carlos goes, what, that you're straight? Yeah, I don't judge.
Also, I would like to say Sylvan has pointed out that the Texas Rangers are a big deal in this show, and they are. And I forgot when I was worried about boots and barbecue, I probably should have gone with the Texas Rangers.
In defense of Lone Star, the way that Abbott Elementary is about Philly is not the way that Lone Star is about Texas. That only makes sense to Liz, and Liz is the only person that needs to know what that means.
That resonates.
There are so many like weird crossover moments between the 911 verse and the Rookie that have like really been bothering me. Like there's a whole like storyline where like firefighters are getting shot at, and all of these firefighters from other stations have been shot, and like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, was this a crossover that I missed? Like, what is happening? But the barbecue woman, the brisket woman from the episode you just talked about that nobody has seen, is the wife of the chief of police. And Carlos's dad is one of the judges.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's a lot of nepotism in this show, man. Everyone's kid has a great job.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Wow.
Okay.
No, Bungie, all I mean is that they are not committed to accurately representing Texas in the way that Abbott Elementary is accurately representing Philly. They're not making a show about Texas because it needs to be about Texas in the way that Abbott is making a show about Philly because it needs to be about Philly. I'm so sorry, Sly. Please continue.
A question. That's something. All right. We're moving on to our next conversation point. Owen Strand as a Mary Sue. Discuss.
Well, this is where I want to immediately hijack and say Owen Strand is not a Mary Sue. Owen Strand is part of the Chris Traeger multiverse. And if you know Parks and Rec as intimately as Marissa and I do, you know that every single element of his character is just Chris Traeger derivative and then put in a firefighter costume.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of neuroticism and over like competency in the way that you could argue is Mary Sue-ish. But no, my initial impulse would not be to say that Owen Strand is a Mary Sue. I would just say he's flat and boring.
And Chris Traeger.
And anything about him that is interesting is just Chris Traeger.
Correct. And Chris Traeger is flat and boring except for his physical mannerisms, which bring his character to life. So all Owen Strand is to me is Chris Traeger without that physical inhabitation of the character. Like Chris Traeger ends every sentence with, and Owen Strand doesn't do that. And that's the only difference.
It's just Chris Traeger without neuroticism.
Different neuroticism, I would say.
I guess, yeah.
I was gonna say there's some compulsive tendencies there.
Yeah.
Do you guys think Chris Traeger's not Chris? Oh my God, not Chris Traeger. Do you guys think Owen Strand is a Mary Sue? Though, is this like a conversation topic amongst the 911 Lone Star community?
I think it's a conversation topic within our 911 Lone Star community, like the group chat that is JJ, Alexis, and I yelling about 911. Very much so.
What's the consensus then? We've only seen 2 episodes.
You're muted, bestie. You're muted.
Sorry. There were questions about coffee and I tried to anyway. I wasn't a part of the Mary Sue conversation. But like, yeah, sure.
I think it's something that JJ offhandedly mentioned on live the other day. And I was like, yes, this is a conversation we would have. That was the idea behind it.
Right on.
Yeah, I think it feels like a conversation for people that have better media literacy than I do. So like, I feel a little like out of my depth when like talking about like that type of phrasing specifically. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
the men that call Carol Danvers or Natasha or whoever a Mary Sue, if Owen Strand was like a woman, they would call him a Mary Sue. But I don't think that it's an accurate description in the way that a Mary Sue, like, I don't know. Are we talking about like what gets typed a Mary Sue or what in actuality is a Mary Sue? Because like,
those are two different conversations.
right, like being, I don't know. I think if I was one of those men, I would be like, yeah, that has all of the characteristics of that, but like not because it actually is. Does that make any sense?
I just feel like, yeah, it does make sense. I just feel like that Owen Strand as a character feels very much like a Rob Lowe self-insert, and it's him fulfilling all of these like power fantasies that he has and like all of these dream roles, and that has very similar like approach to how like what we would call a Mary Sue character is like developed. And so like that the foundational like how he's being approached as a character is very similar in how people who write Mary Sue's write Mary Sue's.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. I feel like it's very much in the same vein.
Yeah.
I think there's something else at play here, though, that's kind of interesting, which is when you have like a flagship show like 911 Lone Star is for so many networks, and you have someone like Rob Lowe coming in as executive producer and lead, right? And the whole show in its inception really is on his back to make or break, right? If Rob Lowe gives a shit performance and people don't resonate with it, the show will get canceled, or he nails it and people stick around, they get renewed for season 2. And I think you see this a lot in star-powered backed shows, and particularly on network TV, where you can't plunge a person like him into cold water. You have to create some kind of like common thread for fans of Rob Lowe to latch onto. So you're putting Rob Lowe back in the driver's seat of a flagship network television show. You need there to be some callback to why you love him, right? So for me, hearing the hair discourse stuff, not as it related to like his cancer storyline, but as it related to like the pride he has in himself, really took me back to what I loved about him in Parks and Rec, because the upkeep of Chris Traeger is such a piece that you can latch onto in why you root for Chris to have character development in the same way you want Rob Lowe to have character development as Owen Strand. And I think you see that all the time when stars like him are cast in shows like this. Like they bring in a piece from a previous project or something that they nail really well, whether it's like the way they emote or like the way that they can play off their fellow actors and the way they pair personalities, or whether it's personality traits that they can bring back in. And that to me is more of a typecast than the Mary Sue discourse here. Like I think there were strategic choices made in season 1 of Lone Star that, with the pieces I know about the later episodes and seasons, you can see they grew out of some pieces of the show, like any good show will. But it was essential for them to make us buy into this man. And whether or not we really bought into him, I think is questionable, but they tried to give us that, throw us that life raft so that we would stick
Question if
with it.
anything they do with Rob Lowe is essential to the show, but that's
I also think
another
that, like,
conversation.
I also think it's obvious, like, when I was watching it, that like the target demo shifted so drastically, right? Like the gay firefighter hashtag community is not like necessarily like moms who just put their kids to bed that are now drinking wine and want a show to watch, right? But I think in some of the early writing of this, you get the sense of that demographic. You're looking at like Midwestern,
Well,
like, go ahead.
so looking at the development of the show in particular, 911 Lone Star was created, this is me generalizing, but in response to a very specific demographic of 911 OG fans. So 911, the original show, has a very clear delineation of two types of fan. It is the 40 to 65 older parent, adult person who puts on the network Fox show every week. And it is the very young 18 to 30s, tends to be queer, very involved, high media literacy group. And they were seeing this huge push from this fan base that is the younger crowd, the people on social media, the people who understand queer media literacy and how to clock queer coding and queer baiting within shows, whether it's intentional or not. And this huge push from that community. And the executive producers looked at it and said, that's not how we're writing the show. That's not our intentions. And instead of changing what we're putting out, even though we know that's how you're receiving it, we're going to instead give you this very diverse cast, this very big thing. We're immediately going to canonize this gay MLM relationship within the first couple episodes so that you stop talking about that within this one community. So like when you look at like how the show was developed, it was developed to draw in the original audiences of 911, the people who were there for the I had a glass of wine, what's her name?
Angela Bassett?
No. Season 1, Abby, what's the actress name?
Connie Britton.
They were there for the Connie Britton show. So the people who were there for the Connie Britton show continued once it was no longer the Connie Britton show. And they were trying to serve that audience as well as the separate audience. And so trying to establish room for both within Lone Star is this huge point of contention.
That's interesting, right? And like when you think about, and I don't mean this necessarily to any one network, but generally, right? The way that you're able to sell ads for shows like this versus like the community that's like allowing the show to get the ratings it's getting, those things don't always match, right? So if 911 needs to continue in a particular way to just like make a particular set of advertisers or stakeholders or whoever satisfied, this is interesting as an outlet to say the things that we can't push in this medium, we will literally pick up and we will plug into another medium so that we can satiate one and like raise the voices in a way where we can rally around that, which is interesting. But and then it's interesting to like have to contend to that with bringing in a character like Owen Strand, who is like
the city slicker, New York. Yeah. I was in 9/11 too.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Lots to dig into there.
All right. I think that segues actually really well into the next point I had, which is the idea of having a diverse, I'm using quotes because we all know that word means nothing, but it is the qualifier I'm using here. Having a diverse ensemble versus using a diverse cast or telling diverse stories. Something that comes up a lot with Lone Star because it was the, inclusivity problem. It was we're making this as diverse of a cast as we can. But what stories do they tell with those characters? What stories they're telling, I'll tell you, because you guys haven't seen the rest of the show, it is the Owen Strand show with all of these people playing side roles.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're getting at this point.
So I just want to say right off the bat, like, the idea that we can even have a conversation about diverse ensembles is so huge. Right? Like, so I know what you mean when you say like using the word diversity in this instance is interesting, but I think it means so much that a show like this exists at all, because even 5 years ago, we did not have network primetime TV in its 3rd season with ensembles that were cast like this, right? So the only reason we can even have this conversation is because of decades of work where a diverse ensemble could even be cast. And then you look at it from the lens of like, you reach that point where it can exist. What is the improvement on that, right? We've talked about that so much with like Marvel too, and how they were able to complete an arc of being able to cast diverse people in lead roles, not consistently and not well, but they could do it. And then now how do you improve it? And this show is an interesting take on like that second step. They got a diverse cast. They were able to retain them over the course of multiple seasons to some extent, up and down, ebbs and flows. People get spotlighted, people get backseat, like etc. You have still the white straight man at the forefront of it all, sure, but like and this is something that Ryan Murphy, when he recently received that like Lifetime Achievement Award, was applauded for, and he used that platform to talk about how he, in his projects, regardless of what you think of them, will always try to champion and spotlight and uplift these like diverse casts and stories to the best of his ability. And I see that work themed through this show. And it's interesting how it's someone like him who has been able to cast like a very diverse ensemble and try and bridge in as many diverse stories as he possibly can. Whether or not they're done well is like another conversation, but like has tried to do that work on multiple platforms and has already successfully done it on network television, has another chance to do that with over a decade of experience doing that. Like, to me, it's a conversation about what he is able to push through his work. And is this really an improvement on what he has or has not done of the past? Like, he made so many mistakes with diverse ensemble storytelling with Glee, like countless mistakes on that end. Does he actually do those characters and storylines justice here? Is he hiring behind the scenes to support those arcs and characters in the writer's room and the editing suites? It's interesting. I don't know the answer to all those questions, but it's a bigger story. Yeah.
Particularly, but it's getting better. We see this especially, there's 2 moments I want to reference. One is the moment where the only time we get an attempt at maybe having a love interest for Paul is a woman who can't handle the fact that he's trans. And that's the only, up until like recent flirtation moment. Like, that's all we see romantically with that character. And then the second issue that a lot of people call out is Marjan's character as a whole. And so the actor playing that character is not a hijabi woman. And so a lot of problems arose, especially in the first 2 seasons with that character. Like the prayer moment in the montage in episode 1, a lot of people criticized. The actor has now, post season 3, talked about how like she was not prepped, she was not prepared. She was given a like quick tutorial video, like had 10 minutes to film it, really just like not setting her up for success with that moment. And she had no support behind the scenes besides like one executive producer on the show who was like backing her up until, I can't remember if it was the start of season 3. I think she was able to bring in a consultant team for accurate Muslim representation in television. I don't remember the name of the group off the top of my head, but she mentioned it in the Twitter spaces she did with Max Gao when season 3 was coming out. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. But she was able to finally bring in a consultant team because she had the footing, the power, the like stability to voice all of these concerns. So like, it's getting there. It's slowly but surely like improving bit by bit every season, but definitely the representation behind the scenes is nowhere near what we would expect from a production of this size.
Yeah. I think, granted, I've only seen 2 episodes, but I think from my perspective in in what you've said of their goal in producing this spinoff, I don't think they're really being very successful in that goal. I think it's a lot of bodies on a screen rather than stories being told. And for me, it was very much the Owen and Michelle show when it should be the TK and Marjan show. So I would have done it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for context, the fan response I'll clarify. The fan response in our insular community of people who watch Lone Star is that Gina Torres, who replaces Michelle in season 2 and beyond as the paramedic captain, Gina Torres should be number 1 on the call sheet. The fact that Reblo is above her is a fucking tragedy. And that the focus should be on the dream team. We want to see Paul, Marjan, Mateo, and Nancy, who you barely even saw. Nancy, she's one of the paramedics. We love her. But we want to see those 4 stories. We want them to be the leads in their episodes. We want them to get their flowers in their storylines, and they don't really at all.
Yeah.
Alexis, I'm so interested what your thoughts are on this.
I mean, it's honestly the same thing everybody has said, right? I think, you know, when I watched the show the first time, one of the big issues out of the gate for me, which I think kind of follows the through line of the show, was that the show was trying to convince me that it was going to be like a progressive show that was going to tell me all of these diverse stories. But the setup of the show is that a straight white man from New York has to be the savior of all of these diverse people to build a firehouse that's going to help a pretty bigoted community, like from what we see, right? So I think from that setup, you kind of understand that like this show does what network shows do, which is introduce a cast of people that looks diverse so that they can get credit for kind of that diversity, but then they don't really know how to tell those stories yet, right? And like regardless of what that reason is, like you said, Liz, you know, maybe it's just like a lack of knowledge thing, right? Like we're moving forward and that's taken a lot of work, and like we're at a stage that we weren't 10 years ago. So like maybe it's just getting there, or it's like an active choice, right, to continue to put Rob Lowe on top of the call sheet as opposed to somebody like Gina Torres, who is a woman of color and has had really interesting stories, you know, kind of surrounding, you know, her the different heritages in her background. So like, you know, whatever it is, I think it's pretty clear that this show gives us characters that are really diverse and interesting that we want to know more about, but then continues not to give us those stories.
All of that.
I think that's just sorry to pick up on one thing, Alexis, that you said there. I think it's like interesting. Oh, I'm like losing my thought as soon as I said it because you gave me like 10 million beautiful thoughts to think there with that. As 2 people that have watched 911 and 911 Lone Star, how would you, each of you, pair this conversation in comparison to what has or hasn't been done on 911?
Oh gosh. Okay.
Maybe like condensed thought. Like
yeah. 911 diversity. In summation, we have Chim, who's an Asian man who wears shoes in the house. What's up with that? We have Hen, who is a black lesbian, but the only time we ever see her wife is in storylines about her cheating on her wife with a white woman. We have Chris, who's actually really well done. Eddie's son. He's played by Sprite from Eternal's little brother. We love Gavin. But like the only time we really talk about his disability is through the perspective of his super ableist teacher, and that's whatever. Who else? That's like when I think of diversity, I literally can't name more than like 4 aspects of over the course of 6 seasons of OG.
I think the difference is maybe too that while OG does not have the diversity in the cast that Lone Star does, that they do in my opinion a better job of being an ensemble show. They do a better job at giving the characters in the cast stories, and I think those stories, though not always great, Hen and the White Woman have gotten better over time. Like I think this most recent story with like Eddie and his heritage and like healing that trauma with his father and like working through that has been like a kind of a positive move for them. There are bits and pieces of Chim's history with the family that kind of took him in America that have been really interesting and good. But I do think they kind of, while there is less diversity, they give more time to those
They have more
stories.
well-rounded characters.
Which makes a little bit of a little bit of a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I also like I'm super generalizing. There are moments, there are like rescues, there are victims, so we see a little bit more diversity. I don't want to touch on the whole Grant family and the cop stuff because that's just way too much to unpack with like 15 minutes left in this conversation. But yeah, I 100% agree with what Alexis is saying. Like these characters are given more opportunities to shine as a part of an ensemble. They each get their begins moments. They each get their time to shine within their arcs. And that's something we really haven't seen with like very few exceptions on Lone Star. Like Lone Star refuses to title any episodes begins. Which is fine, whatever. But we've only seen 2 episodes that we could really call begins episodes. And one is Grace and Judd, and the other is TK with his mom. And that's about it as to fleshing out the backstories of these characters, really. If that answers your question. Cool, great. Speaking of Dread Rider, Alexis has a lot of really thoughtful thoughts. Before we get to that, I want to add my one Dread Rider thought, which is Dread Rider is the ally of the century because of the infamous, I don't know, sure ma'am scene within that. We have the racist lady who's refusing to be treated. And as she's like going down the line of everybody, Judd's reaction is an immediate, instant, no hesitation, no, to when she asks to be treated by him. And that is ally behavior. That is something we only see somebody who is very much in love with a Black woman respond. And I just think that's really great that we got to see that moment from his character. But Alexis, tell us more about Dread Rider and being great Southern man representation.
This is something that you and JJ I think have talked about on I almost said on We'll Throw the After Party on Thirsty Thursdays, is that Jed is kind of set up as a character that when you start the show you're not really sure how to feel about Jed, and you're not really sure what the show is going to do with Jed, right? And I remember when I first watched it being really hesitant, being like, am I allowed to like this man? Because usually this type of man in media is not somebody that I should like. And there are multiple instances, like you mentioned throughout the show. Like the one that really hits me is the conversation he has with Grace in a later episode where he's like, well, they like Billy's not my people. Bella Swan's dad is not my people. And she's like, honey, he is like your people, right? Yeah. And he has to do some like learning and growth. But I think overall, it was really refreshing for me to see a take on a man in the South. Like Jed is still a very masculine guy who doesn't masculine guy who doesn't mind to like take a back seat, doesn't mind to grow, like doesn't mind to learn, but also doesn't really change the like core quote unquote southernness, right? Like he wears the boots and he rides the horses and he has the draw, right? And I think it's just a really like, the South has a lot of problems, right? And I get that we want to show all the problems that the South has. But I think being in the South, if all of you are seeing is a negative representation of what you are, then that doesn't give anybody anything to aspire to, right? And I think what's really interesting about Judd is that he's this like Southern archetype that can is easily accessible to men that I know in the South, but is also aspirational, right? And kind of gives you a little bit of a blueprint of like how to be a good person and not lose kind of this Southern identity piece. And I just think has been a really like unexpected joy in watching this show.
Absolutely. And everything about how his character is presented within storylines is really around this idea of him being a very supporting backseat kind of person in how he interacts with multiple people in his life. We see that with Grace and all of their lovely conversations. And we see that in later seasons when Gina Torres, Tommy, comes in, and their friendship is very much Judd being the ultimate hype man for Tommy, and we love to see that. And just the role his character plays within his interactions with other characters is from this place of support. And I think that's really, really cool to see when we're looking at this character, that it is giving people a representation of what they could be or what they could become or like might relate to in a way that, like you said, could be aspirational or motivational to change that perspective. Because yeah, if all you see is that everything about you is wrong and bad, why would you ever think that you should be anything other than it? Just it forces people to double down when you're like, everything about the South is bad. You're forgetting that a lot of people in the South are queer, are, from various backgrounds, and you're not giving anybody who might be willing to learn and grow the opportunity to do so. Any final thoughts?
I'm learning a lot about Texas this evening, is what I'm learning.
Oh, Liz, please tell me you know Texas is in the South.
I did.
Okay.
I can confirm.
Whew.
I knew Texas. I think I could even identify it on a map, but I've done many a try and name all the states of the United States challenge and have multiple not even on multiple attempts, but on every attempt have named lakes states. So
Yep, that's true.
I have a long, but I am confident in my ability to know where Texas is. Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, JJ and I have talked about it a little bit, but there's like a weird Tennessee to Texas pipeline. Like there's something about Texas, like to be so far from Tennessee that feels very like Tennessee-y. So they're like the same. They're very similar South to me, even though they are like so far.
That checks out with what is also in my brain.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have like a weird energy that is different than like a Louisiana, Georgia type South. Yeah.
Great. I love
Liz,
that.
did you know that the
you.
state of Texas is bigger than the country of France?
I did
Great.
know that.
It's another Texas fact for you. Sly, you can wrap the show now. I'm sorry.
Cool, thanks. I would love for somebody to keep a tally of every time a transition's been cut off.
I'll add it to my spreadsheet.
Thanks, love it. On that note, thank you to my lovely co-hosts for indulging me in watching this gem of a show for this takeover. Thank you to all of our lovely lovely viewers. If you're catching this on the replay, please put all your thoughts in the chat. We love to read them when we go back to revisit these episodes. But before we head out, let's just give people where they can find you, a little teaser, what's coming up for you in the next week. Liz, are you prepared to kick us off?
I am absolutely prepared to give you a little boilerplate. I'm producer Liz everywhere. We are heading into Oscars week, which means a lot of content coming down the pipeline. We are planning Oscars content. I have Oscars content for my TikTok coming out, helping everybody recap what's happened over the course of the season. So if you're behind, don't feel gatekept. I got you. And I have a vlog coming about the event I went to last night. So you can look forward to that after the show.
Hell yeah. Marissa?
I am at Miss Obobissa everywhere on the internet, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and Tumblr if you're into that, but I never post. And it's Oscars week. So I'll be honest, I'm going to be tweeting up a storm, but I don't know what kind of content my TikTok is going to look like because I haven't watched most of the nominees, but I will be this week.
I made a video about this. If you go on my profile, which of the Best Picture nominees can you lie about having seen? So maybe start with that, Marissa, and then work backwards.
Oh, there are several that I am prepared to not watch, and I refuse to watch. But there are many that I have been meaning to. This was another thing that was supposed to be in my rant, but I forgot. That I just like sit down to watch a nominee every night, and then I get bored and just read fan fiction instead. But that's changing this week, and I can't freaking wait.
That just means it's going to be fresh.
It's going to be fresh.
Yeah.
Check out my Letterboxd. There's a thing to plug. Also, Miss Obobissa on Letterboxd.
Oh my God.
See how much I actually commit to watching the Best Picture nominees before the Oscars.
If you think that we're chaotic on YouTube, Twitter, or TikTok, or Instagram, you should see the shit that goes down in the Letterboxd reviews because it is the most unhinged place we exist on the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, the marital separation is really popping off this week because, of course, you know what is also happening this week. It's the return of 911 OG, baby! So very excited for all of that happening Monday. I'm seeing more promos than I ever wanted to in my life. Shit's going down. So be sure to tune into Thirsty Thursday this week. It will be a chunky one, breaking down both Lone Star and OG, including last week's Lone Star that I totally did not watch in time to talk about on Thirsty Thursday this week. So, you know, three episodes worth of content coming at you for Thirsty Thursday on TikTok. You can always catch me on Point in Progress and everywhere on the internet at Cyclone MC when I get around to posting anything. But Alexis.
I am just Alexis Blake. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram, where I just talk about life and sometimes 911 when I'm not intimidated, and school, and I do like bi-weekly apology videos and that kind of stuff. So come say hi. Pretty much it.
Hell yes. Be sure to check out all those things. Of course, if you want to keep up with the show, you can find us on all the platforms at Afterparty SHO. And with that, we will see you all next week. And I totally did not have the banner pulled up.
You can do it.
Thank you, Liz. Bye.
Bye.